All right, guys, we got another More with Devin at 7 o'clock going down. Today we're going to be talking about fitness. Sorry about not being here for some of those shows last week. I had to take care of some things with my son. He had his open house, so we're back at it, back going with this, moving in that direction to help you guys with anything that you need. And so let's keep this going and, submit those questions when you need that help of any kind of nature. All right, so today what we're going to be talking about is fitness and, the principles of training for wellness and longevity. And a lot of us, we work out, whether we're training for athleticism, we're training to, get in shape, we're training to, build muscle. Most people, that I come in contact with, they have some type of injury or some kind of issue that, impedes them from being able to train at the degree that they desire. And just want to go through some principles on how to implement training in a way that it brings wellness to yourself, where you're healthy, you feel good, you can move well through full range of motion, and you're not having any kind of nagging injuries. And then from that space, that's going to allow you to have a longevity of training and get the most out of it. So if you are trying to, reach you have athletic goals, or you do have aesthetic goals, if you're able to be healthy, you're able to reach those goals to the highest degree. And so want to talk to you, help give you guys some principles on how to make that happen. So, first thing, number one, whenever you're training, you never want to, let me get this adjusted. You never want to train to failure. Not to fail. You never want to train through pain. So obviously, you're going to feel you're going to get winded when you work out. Your muscles are going to be sore, but you should never have any kind of acute pain, especially in your joints and your knees and your shoulders, where you're working out and you feel acute pain where you can feel an injury is about to happen, or you're trying to push through something that isn't beneficial to you getting stronger and you being able to build muscle. So any kind of nagging pain, a lot of times, in sports, you kind of learn to, not to be, a punk and, push through the pain, and, you got to do it for your team, or, you got to show that you're tough. But all that does is set you up to be injured and not get to where you want to be. So, getting that out of your mindset that you got to be tough and push through acute pain, that's the first thing. And then from there, whenever you work out, no ego lifting, really learning how to, train through the full range of motion. A lot of times, when we are training, you do a bench press and, a person will only go from here to here. And, if you do that over a duration of time, if you do come back too far, that connective tissue isn't strong enough, and then you can injure yourself, as well as you're not getting the full potential of what your body can achieve by, only working through, partial ranges of motion. So, and even within that, a lot of people kind of are, personal trainers, different kind of, strength coaches, they'll teach you to train not through the full range because they don't want you to, hurt your connective tissue. But really, you're only really as strong as your connective tissue is. And a lot of times where issues come about in training is that, your muscles are really strong, but then your tendons and ligaments are not that strong. So, maybe you can lift 100-pound dumbbells when you go 75%, but if you were to come all the way full range of motion, that's where a lot of those pec tears come about and shoulder impingements happen because you're not working through that full range as well. Same thing with the shoulder press. A lot of times when you see a person do a shoulder press, they're coming here, back up, instead of coming all the way down the range that your body can fully move and getting that connective tissue strong. So if your connective tissue can handle 100 pounds, then you can possibly even be able to lift even more, and you'll be able to lift in a pain-free way, and you'll be able to fully actualize your true strength and be able to maintain and keep everything in a place of resilience. But if you only work partial parts of that movement, and it's mostly short range where the actual muscle tissue is being worked and not the tendons and ligaments, you put yourself in a situation to cause injury for yourself. And then and then the next thing, kind of what I always talked about, working out from a pain-free place, you never want to push past what your body can handle. So, it's best to just start off where you are, work within a range where you got good control, your body can, handle what's happening. And then little by little, you progressively add more weight. And instead of, you get in the gym, a lot of times your ego gets involved and you're trying to, impress yourself and impress your friends. And then your body's just not ready to lift at that level. Not to say that you can't get to that level, but you just got to be patient. And, from there, making sure that your technique is really, really good. You're controlling the movement. And, so that may mean that maybe you're strong enough to be able to lift this weight, but then you don't have those patterns together where, you can do it with good technique. So make sure you master the movement, move with good intention, and make sure that you understand the why behind what's happening. So then from there, you can progress and continue to, get that strength in alignment with your technique. And so that once again may mean that you gotta, let the ego go and, focus on your form. And, it may be some cute girl, or you may see somebody online lifting super heavy and you're trying to be like them. Just humble yourself, and it's you versus you. Take your time, because a lot of times, the slower you go, the faster you'll get there if you really understand what you're doing and the why behind it. Versus like trying to get somewhere super fast and, technique isn't right, you're not being aware, and then you set yourself up where you end up hurting yourself, or you create bad habits, and then you got to go backwards just to even get yourself back to where you want to be. So just take your time, get in tune with the movement. And then from there, the next thing, this is something that I learned from, a guy named Ben Patrick, Knees Over Toes guy, learning how to regress before you progress. And many times, even within training, personal trainers, and, you think to yourself, like, doing the most like complicated, complex movement shows that you're super smart and you're awesome at what you're doing and you're just killing it. But in reality, the ability to regress movements shows how well you understand something. So, it may be some like super cool movement and you're trying to do that, and you set yourself up to like make it complicated, and then you don't actually understand the why behind it, and then you injure yourself, or you never really get the movement down in a way where you highly understand it. So it's best many times to do the regress movement and really master that. And especially if you're, injured or you have any kind of pain, you're not able to execute the movement in a proficient way, find a way to make it easier. And that doesn't mean that it's worse. You work with where your body is, and then you get strong in that movement, and then you can progress. And then you continue to progress and continue to progress, and then you get stronger. And then you're able to do more complex movements, because really complexity is simple things combined, and then it becomes something complex. So a person who's mastered a certain thing, it's all those steps that they did were simple, and they understand it in a way that they're not having to overthink, because their body and their mind is in alignment. But if you try to do something that you don't understand those simple processes behind it, it becomes complicated. And when something's complicated, it's no use for it. You're just making things harder for yourself. So like, to start off doing the regress type of movements, take it slow, take it easy, and master that part, and then continue to progress. And then eventually people see you, and trying to figure out how you can do this so well. I have so many clients in my gym. I see this happening with them, from women that are in their 60s to, guys that are in their 50s and 60s, starting off super, barely being able to do certain movements. And now they can do it at a high level of proficiency, because we just did the simple things over and over and got really good at it. And now here we are, people lifting really heavy, really, and really good technique, and just, crushing it. So be okay with regressing. Be okay with doing the simple movement. Be okay with doing the movement that seems boring, that is not on Instagram or some celebrity person is doing. Learn how to do the simple things well, and then you'll get to those, higher level, movements, and, gain that higher level understanding. So then from there, the next thing is, kind of brought this up as well. A lot of times when we get in the gym, no matter what our goals are athletically, aesthetic, or we're just trying to, lose weight, we don't prioritize and focus on making sure our tendons and ligaments are strong. And, something that's pretty interesting. So, we have like your gluteal tendon, then you have your quad tendon, your patella tendon, and then you have your Achilles. And but from that space, you also have like your glutes, which are really powerful, strong muscles. Then you have your quads, then you have your tibialis, and then you have your Achilles, soleus, things of that nature as you go down. And what's interesting is, the lower you go, the less muscle there is. So like on your ankle and your calf, it's really, really, a small muscle group, but the strongest tendon is the Achilles tendon. And then as you go up, it gets weaker. So let's think about this. If you focus on getting your muscles really strong, but then your tendons aren't strong, you're going to create issues for yourself. So like, you gotta, train in a way where you strengthen your tendons and ligaments, and make sure that they're resilient and they can handle the pressure and the stress that your muscles is able to output. And that's where a lot of different issues come about with people when they train, is that their, connective tissue is not strong enough for how powerful they are. And this was something that happened to me. Like, I'm over here, my glutes are super strong, and, being able to deadlift, over 600 pounds. And then, my knees were not able to handle that. And, I would have issues with that. And then, it took me learning how to build from the ground up and getting my, my ankles really strong, getting my knees really strong. And then from there, making sure my hips are strong and then my back strong. And, so you got to build from the ground up, and you got to make sure those tendons and ligaments are really strong. Because look, you think to yourself with basketball and football, all these athletes, what's the main thing that happens to them? Achilles tear, ACL tear, MCL tear. So they're super strong, but their tendons are not resilient enough to handle what they're doing. So, really focusing on getting those tendons really strong and work. So, and that's going to happen through working through a full range of motion and, training in a way where the tendon is getting an opportunity to get some good blood flow and get some good, stimulation in a way that it can handle. Because if, the more you put that tension on that muscle, on those tendons, and they're not strong enough for it, that's where the injury starts to come. Or if the muscle can create too much force that the tendon can't handle, same thing. So really focusing on, like I said, the full range of motion and training where you really focus on those tendons and ligaments and joints, getting those nice and resilient. And then next thing is, also, the next thing is a lot of times, making sure that you're doing good core work. A lot of times whenever we think about core, we're just thinking about, abs. And you train to try to make your abs look nice. But in reality, you need to actually train your core. So as well as your posterior chain, so your back, your lower back, and just your actual abs. And, not only just doing, crunches, but planks, anti-rotation type of movements. All kind of different planes of motion where that core is nice and resilient and strong, as well as the internal aspects of your muscles, not just the superficial part that you see on the outside. And, a lot of times there's people you see online talking about abs are made in the kitchen. You don't really need to train abs. You just need to get lean. And, from that space, what ends up happening is if you're deadlifting or you're, squatting a really heavy weight, or just even a general population person, you're having all this back pain because your core is not strong enough to handle, the forces that you're putting on it. And then you have these issues because your core can't handle what you're doing. So you got to work the whole core. The core is like our center, and you want to make sure that's nice and strong and resilient. So, making sure that you do that type of stuff and it'll help prevent back pain and things of that nature. And then the next thing is incorporating, stretching, for your muscles. And, there's a lot of times, stretching and tightness is correlated when people perceive that. So you have a tight muscle, but many times a tight muscle can mean that you have a weak muscle. And then, and at the same time, you don't want to just stretch, because if you stretch and then you're not strong, then you could possibly be hypermobile, and that can create issues as well. So the best thing is to be strong and flexible, so you can move throughout the full range. Your body it's not tight. There's no issues. So in a lot of ways that you can do that is kind of what I was talking about, doing a full stretch push-up where you're getting a full range of motion. So maybe having it at a deficit so your chest can go all the way down. Doing a pull-up, but doing a shoulder press where you're getting the full stretch, the full range of motion. Things like seated good mornings. That's going to help strengthen your back, as well as, get your hip flexibility in a more proficient place. And then something like an ATG split squat is going to help with, your quad flexibility as well as your hip flexors. And then, RDL, Romanian deadlift, that's going to help with, stretching out your hamstrings. And then as well as a Jefferson curl is going to help stretch that connective tissue in your back. So you can there's certain ways that you can stretch and develop strength. And that's from what I found, that's one of the best ways to, implement stretching is to, add, load to it. And then you're able to get stronger, and you actually can stretch. You get more, flexibility, and you can get more range of motion the more that you do it. So, definitely what I found for myself is, there's a lot of studies that talk about whether or not, flexibility prevents injury. All I can say is that at my gym and what I've experienced with my clients and myself, once we have really implemented stretching where it's a part of our daily routine, clients are doing much better with their range of motion, the way that they train, how comfortable they are, how much control they have, and people are doing really, really well. There's not a lot of injuries in the gym. People are moving really well. And like I hear, older population clients tell me how like they're moving so much better. They can tie their shoes and they just feel much more comfortable. So what I found is, definitely implementing stretching in your strength routine for your overall wellness and longevity from what I've have perceived and, experienced. It's a really great tool to add to your strength training for sure. And then the next thing, is making sure that you are patient with yourself and like not trying to overdo things or make things happen too fast, and being mindful, being self-aware about the why, about what you're doing. So like, are you lifting, trying to lift, work your glutes, or are you working your quads, whatever that muscle is, you got to be able to slow it down and engage that muscle and learn how to like tap into that specific group and, be intentional about what you're doing instead of just moving, bringing other body parts into it, and never being able to get that mind-muscle connection. And, even when I train, when I'm really deep into training and like really focused, it's almost like a form of meditation for me, where I kind of imagine those muscle fibers contracting and stretching and getting really in tune, where it almost as though the more my mind is connected, the more, muscle fibers I'm able to activate. And, you get a really good pump, you feel really good, and then you start to get connected to your body where, it's integrated, your mind and body becomes one. And it's almost like a form of like a physical meditation. And so instead of just lifting and just being like kind of going crazy and not thinking, like get in tune with why you're doing it and, realize this is your vessel. And, this is the way that you live. And the only way we're going to be on this earth is we got to take care of this vessel. So when you train, be mindful and be patient with yourself. And as time goes on, you'll figure it out and you'll start to get in tune with how to activate those muscles in a way that is beneficial to you instead of, bringing harm to yourself. And then last thing that I'll say is that, really focusing on keeping things simple. And, like I talked about is, like I said, simplicity will transition into complexity. Just take it slow and, figure out the simple things. Get in tune with the simple. And then, like I said, the simple will transition to, bigger, levels. And then you're just going from A to B to C to D instead of trying to go from A to Y. You know what I mean? Or A to Z. You skip all the steps and then it's wisdom that you lose and that you don't understand. So like, just take it easy. We on this earth to live and, and be, and, take your time, love yourself. And, like I said before, the slower you take it, and the more intentional you are, the faster you get there. But if you go super hard, you want to get there super fast, you're trying to make up for time, many times you end up going backwards. So if you just take your time, listen to your body and train to make your body resilient and strong and pain-free, you know what I'm saying? And if you, went down a road where you have been training, where you have injuries, you can actually reverse those things. You can get yourself stronger. You can get those tendons stronger. It just takes a little time, and you got to like maybe take some steps back and, let go of your ego and like, take it really slow and understand what you're doing. And like I said, when you train, you should leave that training session. You shouldn't feel obliterated. Not to say that you're not going to be winded, or if your cardiovascular is not that well, or, your muscles haven't been training for some time. Like, it's going to be times when you work out and you're going to feel tired, but you shouldn't feel sore. You know what I'm saying? You're going to feel sore, but you shouldn't feel acute pain. Thinking to yourself like, man, my knees is hurting. That was a good workout. Or my shoulder barely can move. So like, that must mean I did something. Or like, I, was able to be tough and push through like actual physical pain. That's not what's supposed to happen. Like, take little baby steps, and then before you know it, man, you're at an amazing place. And like I said, people will look at you and wonder and say, question and figure out like, how are you doing what you're doing? Give me the secret. And really the secret is just patience and simplicity and being intentional. So if anybody hears people some waving, if there's any questions that anybody has, I'll wait for a couple minutes. I'll be more than happy to answer your questions if there's something that you would like to be answered. I would love to do that. So just let me, whatever comes up, I can do it. If not, we can get off of here. And I hope that I brought some value to you guys. And like I said, the take home from this is be patient. You know what I'm saying? Focus on, building the integrity and, and keep it simple. And if you need to regress, don't feel stressed about that. Don't let your ego, make you do things that are not in alignment with what you truly want. And, if you stay patient with it, the sky's the limit how far you can go. Our bodies are so powerful and there's so much potential within us. You just got to allow it to manifest from a place of love. And when you, allow love, when you train or whatever you do with love, it will grow, it will expand, and you will be able to create and do things that you couldn't imagine. So But like I always say, remember what the mind can conceive and believe, it can achieve.